Hey everyone, guess what? We're here with the dudes from Memory Entry. Memory Entry. If I said that wrong, yeah, it's just one of those days. Whatever. Keith, Armando, John, thank you all very much for taking time out of your night to come hang out and chat with little old me.
Of course.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
having us.
Thanks for having us.
Great to be here, Tom. Thank you.
Hell yeah. So, you guys are a new band, new-ish band, not like yesterday or anything, but started in what, 23? Is that right?
Well, it's an interesting story to us and only us. No, I'm just kidding. It actually really got started back in 2020. We had our first practice. It was me and Armando and our original drummer, Chris. Chris wanted to jam. He just wanted us to get together and jam, so we did, and we started crafting out the first part of what would become the song Crawler, which was the first song on the EP. But it wasn't like serious. Armando, what were you like into it at first? I have to admit I wasn't because I thought it was just a jam session thing. And at the time I was in a relationship that was taking up a lot of time and my podcast was really getting rolling. So I was just busy and I didn't think I would do music again. It wasn't like a thing in my mind at that time. So I was like kind of secretly hoping it would just end. Armando, what did
I,
you think of it at the time?
I did not think our intention was to make a real band, whatever that means. But yeah, we were just, kind of having fun, seeing what happened. We're old friends, so it was very easy to jam around kind of our shared musical interests, I think. But it was, yeah, that was kind of it.
Yeah, we got together and it was like, wait, what should we do? I don't know. Wait, what band do we all like? Ink and Dagger. Done. So that
Right.
kind of guided the influence. Then the pandemic happened. Then we didn't do anything until August of 2021. And then we just slowly started piecing together the five songs that you hear on the EP that just came out now.
For all of you out there, Our World is Going to Disappear is the EP. So you guys got hooked up with Mind Over Matter Records and Iodine Records. I think Mind Over Matter always does some really cool like vinyl with their stuff like that. I've been a fan of that dude for God. I mean, it have to be probably 15, 17 years now. Shit, he's been going that long. That's
Yeah.
wild.
I was ignorant to that label, but I'm just having watched our vinyl process. Oh man, I'm a fan now.
Yeah, I didn't know a lot about that label specifically before we got hooked up with them. Casey from Iodine Recordings hooked me up with Austin, and I'm so glad he did. I can't believe how good the vinyl turned out. And I remember showing John and Armando videos in the practice space. I think he was working on the Juliana Theory vinyl and he was like hand cutting stuff. And then when Austin posted a video of him like hand painting our records, like hand making them, I was like, "Oh my
Silk
God."
screening
He's
everything.
like
Yeah.
he's an artesian. So we are just really lucky to be able to work with him on this.
Yeah, that's always been that's what I've always been fascinated with. I think I grew up in Michigan, but I was living in Michigan at the time when I was first introduced to him. There was a music festival, was it called Bled Fest, I think. And it was a one-day event and they held it in this community center and there were five stages and you went into this room for this and you went into that room for this and then it was wild people everywhere and in the hallway it was like an old school or something. In the hallway were all these vendors and I remember stopping and chatting with him and looking at some of the stuff that he had and just absolutely amazed at the like attention to detail that he put into it and the quality that came out because he doesn't, it's not mass produced. Like this is what he does and that's it. It's
Yeah, it's
always
cool.
really cool.
It is true artesian work. I just got the physical LPs in the mail today, and the color, just even the feel of the jacket, everything, all the work Austin has put into it, it's just amazing. I couldn't be happier. I'm actually having him on my podcast next month because I'm just so curious about the process, how he learned to do it. like watching that video of him in the garage with the scraper, like making the vinyl, I'm fascinated.
I can show you how to silk screen, Keith.
I
Not
may
that
take you
well,
up on that.
That's going to be that all the next shirts you guys are going to screen print them yourself. Then you're going to be like, fuck this. I'm done. This sucks. This is why we hire people.
Yeah. The less I have to do, the better, always.
For sure. How did Jon come into the mix?
We were getting ready to record the EP in late 2023. 2023 is when things really kicked off. We agreed on the band name. We started grinding the songs. We recorded studio time in December before Chris went away for this month-and-a-half trip he was going on to try to record 2 songs. Jon and I were in a band called The Darling Fire in 2023. And I remember we were on this epic drive from Athens back to New York City. And I remember telling him about memory entry. And I was like, this is my concept for the band. This is the vision I had. This is what it's going to be about. I showed him like a really shitty version of Crawler that I had recorded on the iPhone. And I was telling Jon about it. And, you know, I wanted to play with you still, Jon, because I was sad that the Darling Fire was ending because I loved playing together in that band. And I wanted to play together still.
Not necessarily ending.
Yeah, we knew that we were going to end up leaving that band because Jon had another band he was going to join or did join. I was going to focus on memory entry because the logistics were just too hard with the Darling Fire. They were in Atlanta and South Florida. Jon and I were up here in New York City, and just the cost and the logistics and going down there, it was like it wasn't going to be able to happen long term. We really tried to make it work. I really wanted to because I loved being in that band and playing in that band, but didn't work out. So then, you know, Jon and I stayed in touch, and there was we were playing a show at Bowery Ballroom up here, and our drummer our drummer was having problems with his apartment like the night before the show, and I was afraid. I was like afraid we were going to be playing this big show and he might not be able to make it. And so I called Jon and I was like, "Hey, let's say we needed someone within like 24 hours notice to play this show in 2 days or whatever it was. Do you think you could, or would you be able to?" And what did you say, Jon? I don't remember.
No, I fully remember. I was walking over to a friend's house up here in Queens, and contrary to your version of that, I have no recollection of you actually playing me anything when we were on tour. I remember it, you might have. Spoiler for that tour, I did 100% of the driving for that tour for various kind of sensible reasons, but it's not a sensible thing. So
14 hours.
The Athens to New York haul was a lot. We may have anyway. But that day, you guys released Crawler, and I was walking around going, yeah, blasting it on repeat in my headphones like I do. And I think I sent you a text that was like, dude, this fucking rips. And you're like, hey, can I call you? And I said, well, this is going to be good. And it was kind of exactly what I was expecting, but not. That was just like, I could tell from the text it was about to be a weird pitch. But it's like, hey, would you like to learn 5 songs you've never heard in a day and a half? And I said, sure.
But
just because I've always wanted to play Bowery Ballroom. I've lived in New York for coming up on 17 years. And that's like a bucket list venue for me. I'm still jealous.
Yeah, well, don't worry, we'll be back. But thankfully, Chris was able to play the show. He got the situation with his apartment situated just in time. We played the show, but eventually, you know, and yeah, I don't say this lightly. Once we played that show and started moving into writing new stuff, we had to find someone else. It just, you know, like when bands get started, like you're playing with your friends, you're playing with who's around, but it just wasn't going to work. And it was a really hard thing for me to have to do because we've known Chris for forever. I've known him since I'm 17. Armando has been friends with him for decades. But stylistically, we needed something else. And Chris has other stuff that he does too. He's like a filmmaker, and he does like charity work in film. He's involved in a lot of different things, like maybe some photography.
And a lot of projections.
Projection, yeah. So like it wasn't matching up priority wise and style wise and everything else. So, I knew right away that I wanted to ask Jon, and thankfully he said yes. And now he's here, and we have been working on new stuff, which is exciting because I'm excited to work on new stuff because I'm sick of these 5 songs now. We've been playing them for like 4 years.
Yeah.
Isn't that always the case? Like, man, we released this thing and holy shit, I know it's out now, but I'm really ready for whatever's next.
Yeah. Anything.
Yeah. You kept saying Chris, and I'm like, Chris Enriquez is like the drummer from New York that I know, and I feel like he's in every fucking band ever. And I'm like, oh, somehow they picked him up at some point, and he's like, no, I have 17 other projects that I have to do. Sorry, like,
Yeah, we wouldn't be
damn.
able to get him. He's too busy.
Oh, dude, he's always on the go. Like, I don't know how he freaking does it.
I always call him a man about town. I say, Chris, you're a real man about town because he's always doing something. I don't know how he has the energy for it, but Chris Rogie is our original drummer. We've known him for decades. I knew him growing up, and we actually tried to start a band when we were 17 or 18, and it didn't work out. And he got us together to do the original jam session. So he was there for writing the first EP, recording it, the first 2 shows, and then after the second show, we made the switch.
Hell yeah. Wow.
If it
So
makes
are
you
you
feel any
guys,
better-
go ahead.
if it makes you feel any better, though, Chris Enriquez is inadvertently how I got the gig in the Darling Fire, which is how I met Keith.
Sure.
Of
It's
course
a
he
very
is.
similar situation because they were going to play Vitus and somewhere in Pennsylvania. This was like a Thursday, and it was the next Friday. And I had never heard their record. Like, I knew that they were doing good things, and I had heard like little bits of it, but I didn't know their songs. And it was a similar deal where it's like, because their drummer at the time was Steve from Further Seems Forever, who's a monster. He's the one who's on the records, monster drummer, but he couldn't play the show, and they were trying to find a guy in a week. And I said, sure. And then logistics happened, and it ended up not making sense, but I still met them all there and talked to them, and that sort of started the snowball that ended up with us joining the band. So
So John is
if,
the last minute drummer that everyone calls, dude.
if
We know you're good enough, so we need you to learn these 37 songs in the next 2.5 hours because
yeah,
that's when
right.
we go on. Like, fuck.
Tell all your friends. I'll let them down horribly, but it's a cool idea.
Yeah, whatever. I
You can do
think
it.
what is that show where they like take those songs and they put them on like they play a song that this drummer's never heard and
Yeah.
they've got to play with it.
I can't remember who does that. I don't think it's Drumeo, but it might be. It's one of the YouTube interweb drum nerd sites.
Yeah, what a
Those are-
cool concept though,
yeah.
because it's neat to see how like the different drummers think about how the song flows to them.
By the way, Tom, I'm horribly neurotic, so you can cut this part out. How do you record this?
I'm not gonna cut it out just to be.
Because when I record on Zoom,
He's being horribly neurotic is a very important part of our band.
That's
When I
gonna be the
record
first
on-
short.
when I record on Zoom, I record through Zoom, and I see that we're not recording. And my worst fear is recording a podcast and then like it didn't record. So do you have it going through something else?
You scared the shit out of me. It is recording on Zoom.
It is.
I'm
Oh, I
like
see.
every time
see it.
every time I schedule it, I'm like make sure that I like automatically record as soon as it starts because I've
Right.
done it 3 times actually. I had like 3 different bands where I didn't hit record and I'm like, you son of a bitch.
My worst fear. So
They were-
I'm
Yeah.
I'm done being neurotic now. Continue.
I think Keith just named our genre finally. What do you guys sound like? Oh, we're totally neuroticore.
Oh, that's fucking awesome. So what song on the EP for each of you like stands out more than the rest?
Let's go alphabetical. Armando.
I mean, I think the last song, Holler Wild Rose, is the most unique of the songs, but only because it's different from the other 4. but it's sort of like the most straightforward song, I think. Like stylistically, it has, you know, it's pretty like clear what the influences are, kind of thing. But yeah, I guess that's my answer.
That's a good one.
Fair enough.
John?
I'm sort of attached, as noted, to Crawler just because it was the first thing I heard, and it was just a hi. We're
Yeah.
just such a straightforward, simple song, and I have many times been in bands very recently in New York that have kind of meandering, long arrangements, and so I especially love it when a song that's just super simple speaks to me right away. But I will say the last song does also rip. The vocals on the last song make me do this a little bit, and it's angry as hell, and it's fun to play.
Yeah,
Looks like it'd be fun to play.
Holler I like a lot because that was like an impossible song because I wanted us to write one more before we had four. I wanted us to write one more before we went in the studio. We had like 2 weeks and I just pushed us to write a song. I wrote another song that just copied parts of other songs. And then I was like, this sucks. I can do better. And then somehow I wrote Holler and somehow we learned it in time and somehow we recorded it and I almost passed. I blew out my voice like 5 times recording that song. I almost like passed out and seized up recording it one time. Like I felt I like was seeing stars and my fingers like locked like this and I went down on the ground and I was like, I got to take a break, dude. And I think that might have been it. But
Drink some water.
I think I think my favorite might be Nothing Dead Will Go because it's just like it's the perfect mix of everything. It's like heavy, it's got weird parts. I think I did the vocals all in one take and there's some it's not my best vocal work, but it's like it's got good variation. And I just love that really heavy like thing that happens in the verse. And I don't remember how I wrote any of it. I'm like, where did that come from? I don't remember how the vocals happened, and I love that when I'm like, how the fuck did I do that? Like that's so cool.
Came out of the nether, like here.
It
Okay.
did, and the only thing I remember is I showed Armando and Chris the song Polymer by Blue Tip from the album of the same name. And I was like, maybe we can do something like this. There's this really disjointed riff in the beginning, and the drums go, and that's the only thing that made it is in the Nothing Dead we go. There's like this choppy part in the beginning, and everything else is just like something completely different. So I think that's a good, that's like a, I think that song is like the perfect representation of like what we were trying to do or where we were trying to go and everything for that era.
That's fucking cool.
Yeah.
Love how it starts with crawlers, but Holler Wild Rose is like that's my jam. I'm like, God, I fucking love that song. Jesus Christ, what's wrong with me? Like,
I'm interested to hear an outside perspective because I haven't heard a ton. I'm waiting for like the Spotify numbers to roll in to see like which one do people like the best. I don't know.
so funny you say that. I literally just had a conversation with someone about like those Spotify numbers and how they're like how it's hard to track with a band, especially when they put like a full album out. Because if you notice on most albums that you look at, and I think it's different for different genres, but the first few songs will have really high plays, and the last few songs will be the lowest plays. I think like we are in an era where someone turns an album on and they get bored with it, right? Or maybe not bored with it, but something else like catches their ear, so they're off to another thing.
Makes sense.
Fuck,
Yeah.
It's just logical. I think it's just life. Sometimes you don't have a full 40 minutes.
Yeah. Or whatever singles they put out leading up to the album, those have the most plays.
It's cool at least to start with an album and, intend to play through it,
yeah.
like we all used to do when we were kids.
Shit,
I do too, of course.
yeah.
I'm still a very hard advocate for albums as one long piece of music. That
Yeah, of course.
It's part
Yeah.
of why Keith and I get along, or why when he started talking about what he wanted to do with the upcoming eventual full length is just the shaping of it, and the plans are very pleasing to me. It's a slightly less ridiculous version of something I would do.
Yeah, because John had a concept album planned for his last band, one of his last bands, Godmaker, too. So, we connected on like the overly planning concept thing. Before this EP, before Our World Is Going to Disappear was even done, I had a name for LP1, which has since changed, but it's the same concept. I had a full track listing. I had a full outline of what I wanted to do. So now that we're writing the songs, I just need to like plug it into what track name will fit in the sequence. And some of it has changed, some of it probably will change, but the skeleton of the idea is there.
That's cool. So it's like a fucking outline. Like, okay, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
I think that's why.
It's a
So
specific story, it's a specific concept, it's a specific outline. It's not completely set in stone, but we know where we are going.
that's cool. That's why I think I've always been drawn to vinyl is you put it on from start and listen all the way through. And it's not just the musical like art. You have, that tangible art that you can look at and read the
Yeah.
lyrics and all that shit. I'm proud to say that I've turned my daughter onto that as well. So to
Awesome.
see that she puts that an album on and listens from start to finish, I'm like, fuck yeah, if I did nothing else in this world, I did that.
Nice.
So what like band for each of you that you saw live just blew your fucking mind? You went in with like mediocre expectations and just went, wow.
Oh, that's a good question. Let me think. I always come back to I didn't know about the world of hardcore and metal and all this stuff before I went to a house show. My friends were in a band called This Day Forward. They would throw an annual house show in the singer's house. So I went to that and it was like five or six hardcore bands playing in the house, which, it's contained, it's intense, but I liked it, but I wasn't like into the music yet. Eventually I got into the music and my friends took me to my first big hardcore show, which was like Converge, Turmoil, For the Love of, Dillinger Escape Plan.
Oh, you
I
poor thing. What a terrible first show.
I had no idea what to expect. Everyone was just like, "Hey, Dillinger's playing. They're good." I was right up front. They started playing and the place exploded. Like Ben was swinging his guitar 3 centimeters from my face. Two guys dressed as clowns were just pummeling people. There was blood on the ground. People were stage diving.
This wasn't Slipknot.
I was absolutely terrified. Because I had no idea what to expect, and I was like scared for my life. So I was hooked ever since then. So whenever that's got to be the single most intense musical experience of my life, way back in 1998.
That's a good one. I'm not topping that son of a bitch. John, what about you? Since we're going backwards now.
Yeah.
Nice. I just started an entire explanation. Forgot I had you on mute, so I didn't cough at you. Closer to Our World, I am 100% a fanboy for Bane, which is a sort of polarizing band sometimes within our little hardcore whatever world, but I fucking love that band. And the first time I saw them was at Crazy Fest in Louisville that would have been 2002, I think. It was this. I've only ever got to go there in '99 and 2002. Yeah, so it was. Give Blood was still pretty new then, and it was the first time I had finally gotten to see them because I grew up in Kansas, so I got shows when I got shows. Yep, K-States Unite. I was already like fairly into them. What's the record they just redid? It all comes down to this. I've had that conversation with Bedard a couple times. Like, no bullshit. This kind of saved my life. Thank you. Got me at a time when I needed it. And I mean, everybody knew what they were about. Very positive thing. But I remember two things. I remember that Zach, who I had not seen on stage in person yet, I think he maybe still had the dreads. He definitely still had the big corduroy Jinko looking motherfuckers on back then. I remember that on that huge stage outdoors, I could hear him screaming over the PA like full giant festival PA and was like excellent because he did not have a mic anywhere near him back then. And I just remember like having that thing happen. And I've been around hardcore crowds before. I was 23 at that point because I am the old. But I just remember that they were playing "Can We Start Again," which I know is their like anthem. But I'd just been in a bad place. Long story, not fun. And I remember getting to the sort of climax of that song, where it's just the whole "Do you still believe?" and the gang vocal says "I do," which is out of context, incredibly lame sounding. But I just remember going up for it, and I went to sing at the top of my lungs and had nothing because I was like just totally choked up and hadn't realized it. Just being in this mass of literal about 1,000 kids or something, just everybody screaming in that full volume. You could feel the people shouting, "Move your chest," and I loved it. It was that ended up being a very long one, so I'm not even going to tell you my other one. But I think that's. I remember like I expected it to be good, and they still blew me away. And it was like not a technically great set. They were there were fuck ups. It was sloppy in some places, and I couldn't have given less of a shit.
It was a hardcore show in the early aughts, like that was like par for the course.
Life changing.
And Bane was just like insane live.
So great live.
Yeah.
Control.
As long as they don't break a hip.
Yeah.
I already did that for them. They're safe.
I met my ex-wife at a Bane show, or we went together, but through mutual friends. This will lead into the rest of my story. And she North Philly, and she got like just rocked in the face, moshing, and had to go to the emergency room and blah blah blah. But same time period, probably.
I have scars.
Yeah, year 2000. So I moved to Philly in 2000 for college, and made my friends because you just like walk around campus and you're like, oh, that guy's wearing a Unbroken t-shirt, whatever, so you're like, okay, this is going to be my friend. And then I met two of these guys that I went on to be in a band with within a year or two, but one of them was from Philly, and he took me to this venue, the Kill Time in West Philly, to see the This Day Forward, same thing as Keith's record release show. Did you go to that show, Keith?
I sure did. I was there.
And it was just like not that far from where we lived, or where I lived in college, but just like a very different neighborhood. It was a wild place. And I went to high school outside of DC, and so I had like been to many shows in DC, but it was always like a little more of a sanitized version of punk rock and hardcore or whatever. And so we went there. It was like, this is like a real, what I would come to learn was more of a squat than like a venue kind of thing after touring in Europe for years and whatever. I was like, okay, this is completely different than anything I had experienced before. So violent, so just like crazy. This kid had a seizure at the show, and like paramedics had to come to the show. It was just like a whole thing. So overwhelmed by it. But not that it exceeded my expectations, because I had no expectations. I was like, where are my buddies taking me? My new friends, and we like rode our BMX bikes over there, and saw the show. I was like, oh, this is a different form of this music than I am used to for my high school years.
It's always really cool being introduced into, like an area or a scene that you've never really got into, or maybe not really dove in as deep as you feel you should have,
Yeah, I had heard like my buddy emailed me like Gorilla Biscuit songs on our like AOL accounts, that I took like 2 days to download so I could listen to like the shittiest version of Started.
Like, get off the fucking phone. I'm downloading something, you son of a bitch.
I didn't know a This Day Forward show was an intro for you like that, Armando. That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I had like listened to other hardcore at that time, but I had never seen a proper, that kind of hardcore band.
Yeah.
Like I had heard Converge, but I'd never seen them live. I'd never, you know, that kind of thing.
Right.
That's cool.
Remember who else played that show, Keith?
Was that the one with Poison the Well? And a lot of those shows blend together. I remember Until the
Yeah.
End at one. I remember Walls of Jericho at one. I
Yeah.
remember Hope Conspiracy at one. I remember Spark Lights the Friction at one. But all those Kill Time shows blend together. I forget
Yeah, it was
who
the
was
same.
on
Yeah.
the This Day Forward record release. If it's here, he would know.
Drinking 40s, being badly behaved, you know.
Yeah, at that
I have
This
a-
Day Forward show specifically, I was on the. I used to be a mess, what the doctors would call a mess, and I had like a major drug hangover. Like then I went to the show the next day, and I was like a mess. It was yeah, that's what I was up to at the time.
I still have a hoodie that I bought at that show in my garage in like a bin with all my other hoodies that no longer fit me.
Really? We got to go get
Oh yeah,
that.
yeah.
What are you going to do with it? That's the question.
I don't know. Can't get rid of it.